Alright everyone, welcome to another video from Career Guidance Pro with me, Owain. That's Owain, like a glass of wine. And in this video, I'm going to talk you through the recruitment process. Everything that you have to do to get a job. What is the journey going to be like? What's the structure? By the end of this video, you'll know each step. Roll the intro. All right, let's get to it. So your first step is inevitably going to be some kind of application. Now that's usually an online application which you then attach your CV to. Now my top tips for filling in an online application are as follows. Look at the application. Does it have a save function? Normally they will, 9 times out of 10, I guarantee it. When you've finished your first draft, save it. Take that first draft, come back to it later, have a little look and see you filled out all the questions properly, particularly the ones that ask for longer answers. Take that saved draft, show it to friends, show it to family, get them to critique it, get them to check your spelling and your grammar. Because I guarantee you, a recruitment consultant or hiring manager will not look at your application if your spelling and grammar is poor, because they won't be able to understand what you're saying clearly enough. Now, some of these larger questions, they may have a word count on them as well. So it might say, answer this question in a maximum of 300 words. What do you think you need to do with that? Well, the answer is simple. Answer it with as many words as you can, as close to 300 as you can. About 280, 290, that's what you want to aim for, because that is there for a reason. They're saying 300 words because they believe that that question could be answered in 300 words. So don't answer it in 40 really quickly, because that will show that you are lazy and haven't taken your time. And then of course, you are going to attach your CV. And then they should have all the initial information about you. Now, if you get past that phase, you may then go on to one of two things. Now, that could be online testing in numeracy and literacy. That's called psychometric testing, or you may go straight to a telephone interview. Now, a telephone interview can be a little bit daunting, of course, because you're not used to talking to a stranger, but here are my top tips for a telephone interview. Make sure you are somewhere nice and quiet to take that call. Don't be taking that call in a busy cafe. Don't be taking it when you're walking down the street. You know, the wind could rush past your phone and make it really, really difficult for the interviewer to hear what you're trying to say. So make sure you're somewhere nice and quiet, maybe like a bedroom, or if the house is empty, then absolutely take the call wherever it's quietest in the house. Sometimes a garage, maybe you're able to go to a garage or an outbuilding, that might be good as well. My other top tip for a telephone interview is absolutely do it standing on your feet, because that'll keep the blood flowing, that'll make your brain nice and awake. Because if you do it lying down or sat in a chair, you may have the tendency to, let your energy dip. So those are my top tips for a telephone interview. Psychometric testing, now that's online. Numeracy and literacy, and you can practice these. That is a top tip for those. Practice them. Make sure you've got a timer going and practice them online. Just type them into a search engine and you'll find those practice tests. Now, usually these are a really, really low pass mark to wheedle out the people who just don't really give a crap about the job or about the process. So all you need to do, if you've got 30 minutes to answer 30 questions, you spend 1 minute on each question. If you're not sure what the answer is by the time you reach sort of 50 seconds, then make your best guess and move on. It's always multiple choice. You might get it right anyway. But your goal is to get as many right as possible to get over that low pass mark and get yourself through to the next stage, which might be the telephone interview. But if you've already had that, it's probably going to be a digital interview. Now, there are two types of digital interview you might have. And that could be a job-specific interview to see how you fit with the role and how your experience fits with the role, or it could be a behavioural interview. They may be combined. Lots of recruitment consultancies, they do combine those, but I know that some of the big companies that I've worked with, like Capital One, Saint-Gobain, for example, and Rolls-Royce, they do the two separate interviews. So with HR, you'll do a job-specific interview, and then with your department head, you'll do a behavioural interview. And now that could be in person. As we come out of lockdown, hopefully they will be in person so you can get that personal interaction. But more increasingly, especially if you don't live near the company, you're going to do it online. It'll be a digital interview. on something like Zoom or something like Teams. So you've got to need to know how to do that. So make sure you set up your frame properly. Make sure there's nothing dodgy behind you that could be a little bit controversial. If you're using Teams, they've got a lovely filter which blocks out the background. Zoom is the same. You can get different backgrounds on there if you want to, if you don't want to show people what's behind you. But if you've just got a blank wall, something that's like behind me now, then that's fine. It's generic, it's non-confrontational, it's nice, it's relaxing. You can have a really good chat with somebody and nothing is distracting them. There's no sort of clock whirring around. There's nothing going on that might make them question anything about you. Just, what have I got? A couple of plants, laptop and a microphone. Very simple. Keep it nice and simple. Make sure you're framed as well. Make sure that the camera is not pointing up at your nose or down at the top of your head. Make sure it's nice and flat on you. Make sure your microphone is working, and make sure that if you don't hear any of the questions and maybe the signal drops, the internet drops, make sure that you clarify what's been said when you reconnect and just say, oh, I didn't quite catch the last thing you said. Could you repeat that for me, please? All right, if you get through that phase, then you might get asked to take part in something called an assessment centre. Now that sounds like you're going to go to some centre, but usually a company will invite you to their head offices and you'll do that in a conference room, for example, or they might hire out at a hotel, or you'll do it in one of the hotel's function rooms. Now an assessment centre usually takes the form of a morning, but sometimes it can be a full day. And in the morning, you'll do some introductory team building exercises with your fellow candidates. And then you'll do maybe an industry related task with those teammates, where you'll have to do something related to the job that you're going for. Then usually you're provided with some lunch, or there might be a small break. Then after that, they'll decide, and it is quite brutal, so you need to be prepared for it. They will decide who gets to stay on to have a face-to-face interview with the panel and give a 10-minute presentation. Now, I know that sounds pretty harsh, but if they've got 20 candidates and only 2 positions, they need to get rid of 18 somehow. So that's what they will do. Usually those days are run by a facilitator, somebody like me. I've run them for Saint-Gobain, I've run them for Rolls-Royce, and other companies besides. Massive global concerns, of course. So my top tips for an assessment centre are as follows. Make sure you work well with your other candidates. Don't fall out with them. I know you're all in a competition, but if the assessors see that you are very argumentative and very disruptive in a group, then you're not going to get through to the afternoon. Make sure you prepare your presentation thoroughly and you're ready to give it, even if they ask you to go home, because you might need it for the next one that comes along. Use your breaks wisely. Now that is my number one top tip when it comes to getting into an assessment centre. Use your breaks and that lunch wisely. Do not go and talk to your other candidates. I mean, obviously you're going to chat with them at some point because you need to work with them all day. But in the breaks, go and talk to the assessors that are there, the people who work for the company that you want to work for. Have a little chat with them. I was once running an assessment centre, and this one young candidate had been absolutely awful in the morning in all the tasks. Terrible. But at lunch, he went and sat next to a regional sales manager and struck up a conversation. The outcome of that conversation was the regional sales manager said, I really want to see what more he's got to give. Maybe he was just nervous this morning. Let's interview him and let's give him the presentation. Let's see what he's got to say. Let's see how well he presents on his own for 10 minutes. And you know what? He got the job. I was pretty pleased with that, and I was pleased for him because he really grabbed the bull by the horns there and really went for it. Thought outside the box and thought, I've done really, really poorly this morning. I feel that. I'm going to go and have a chat with them and see what they're all about. He asked some great questions as well. Questions like, why would you recommend this company to other people? Questions like, how long have you worked here and why do you like working here? Or what would you say is the most challenging thing about working here? Those are some awesome questions that he asked, that the regional sales manager told me he'd asked, and that's why we kept him on for the afternoon, and he smashed it out of the park and got the job. Okay guys, hopefully you can too. I know that's a brief run through of everything you've got to do, but the recruitment process can be long. You might get 2 or 3 interviews before you actually get a job offer. For the same company, there might be stages of interviews. It all depends on what the company decides to do and how they want to recruit people. But don't be disheartened, don't despair, be really, really positive, because being employable and using your employability skills is tangible skills that you can improve at. You can work at them, you can get better at them, you can get better at each stage of the recruitment process. Like and follow us, and we can help you along the way. If you want to work with me personally, then check out careerguidance.pro down below. Otherwise, like I said, until then, like, follow, subscribe, tick the bell. You know what you're doing, and I'll see you in the next video.